taking those winning tickets and cashing them in themselves. Fariba, in her brilliance, her insight, and just her perseverance, she figured out how they were doing it and she stopped it. And in so doing, she saved the province millions and millions of dollars, besides all the ethical issues that goes with it. So she cleaned that up pretty fast. And then she went to MPAC, and she did the same thing at MPAC. And it seems that wherever Fariba puts herself, as far as in anyone's boardroom, she makes that type of impact. She makes a difference. She saves millions of dollars, and she is one of the most innovative CIOs I've had the opportunity to work with, and that's why she's graced the covers over the years of CIO. But then she decided to take on an even more challenging role, and it was interesting because I remember her calling me and we met for coffee, and she said, you know, I have all these opportunities to be a CIO again, but I want something more. I want something more challenging. And that's when she became the CEO of AcuteNet. And that's really quite something because there's very few CIOs that have the ability to jump into a CEO role, especially a global one. But at the same time, she's a woman, so it makes it even harder. And that's the thing about Women's International Day. As you know, the Liberal government has just released all sorts of funding to help women, to help that dialogue. But at the end of the day, we haven't moved the tile very much in 3 decades. There's only about 23% of women who hold CEO roles in Fortune 1000 companies. And when they actually did a survey in the US, what they found was that there are more Johns as CEOs in the US than women. So I think that says it all. And I think that's why it's important to have an International Day. Now Fariba, for those of you who don't know her, she came from Iran. When she arrived in Canada, she spoke no English. She was a young woman. She decided to take computer science and math because you don't need English to do math. And as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago on International Day, we filmed Fariba, and she got it in front of the video, and she says, "Take the goddamn math." And that's the one thing I'll always remember about her. So she has definitely been a huge contributor to Canada's innovation agenda. And when she does her presentation, you'll understand why. And so without further ado, please, I'd like to welcome Fariba to the stage.
It's wonderful to have a fan club, but it's also really important to actually have a group of people that help you, because no one is successful on their own. This is my motto, that you get to have the privilege of leading and making contribution because there are so many people around you that are helping you. And the story that I'm about to share with you is actually about that. Because sharing economy, the concept of sharing economy is that we trust each other and we help each other out and we share our assets, we share our capabilities. The first question that people ask me, including my investors, and actually 2 of them are here, Igor Nikolajczyk, Igor, do this so people know who you are, and Bill Campbell, they're here. You know, when I started this journey, they're like, that, what are you talking about? Why sharing the economy? We don't understand this. Why can't you just say cloud and SaaS and all of that? And I said, because it has to do with the industry, okay? In the healthcare industry, the laws of supply and demand do not work. And the reason they don't work is because people don't really want to pay for the price of healthcare. But as in every other industry, the price gets set by the laws of supply and demand because people gain a benefit from it. But when it comes to people that are sick, this is basically a situation that you have an individual that frankly does not care how much it costs to basically get better. Any of us that is in that situation can very much sympathize with that and realize that when you are sick, you want to get better. Now, on the other side of it, there are not that many people that are actually sick. Most of us are healthy. So for healthy people to carry the cost is very significant. And this has nothing to do with the funding model. It has nothing to do with where you are in the world. I was in Saudi Arabia, in Japan, in Korea, it's the same story. United States, with everything said and done, about Medicare, Social Security, it doesn't matter. In Canada, we pay taxes, it's all the same. Those of us who are healthy, we are the ones that have to carry the cost for those who are not healthy. And the cost for those who are not healthy is increasing like ginormically, like it's huge. Why actually this is happening is that because we have more innovation finding a cure for more diseases, and subsequently life expectancy is increasing. So it's like a sort of a double whammy that we as humanity are experiencing. So why came about the concept of sharing economy was really based on my experience being on the board of St. Joseph Hospital. This is before I joined AcuteNet. Being on the board of the hospital, I actually got to understand how challenged healthcare providers are, whether they're doctor, physician, nurses, clinician, administrators, doesn't matter. The providers are really in a really bad situation because they just don't get enough money to actually service the demand that is, lands on the door of their hospital. And when I joined AcuteNet, I saw this opportunity because of the work AcuteNet had the potential to do, which literally is in the area of enabling the front line, nurses, clinicians, physicians, to basically have better tools to do the job of the assessment, that there could be an opportunity, to make this work. So we embarked on that journey. So this is very interesting. So it was in February 2016 that we actually were really gung-ho on this concept of sharing economy. We worked on it in 2014, got our licensing model in place, that what do we mean by sharing economy? And it was in 2016 that we were getting going. And you see our statistic, we publish our statistic every day on our website, AcuteNet.com. And we had about 80,000 patients. This is as of today on AcuteNet.com. We have 2.9 million patients, so almost 3 million patients. So what we did in along the line of supporting sharing economy was that we actually changed the licensing model and we removed barrier for adoption. So we basically give our clients, with our customer, unlimited use in terms of how many users they want to have on our system. They can have as many as they want. How much work do they want to do? How many forms they want to do is all unlimited. How many locations they want to be at is all unlimited. We charge by patient. And the reason we were able to bring this capability is because we actually came out with an engine that all of our customers share. It's similar to ServiceNow and Salesforce in terms of phone digitalization, workflow automation, is not anything different except that ours sits on an encrypted database where all the clinical patient data is encrypted. Every patient gets its own unique encryption key, and subsequently only authorized users can basically access it. And our customer gets the choice to run the infrastructure on our private cloud or in their data center. So when you really think about what we did in the world of sharing the economy, we actually enabled our customer to share the asset, as opposed to pricing it for the usage. You have this many users, therefore that much, that's how much you pay. And the reason we went through this growth as compared to before, because when you look at it previously, what was the product? It was sort of the same thing. It had a EMR, EHR play, pretty much for all intents and purposes, it was the same capability. What the difference was that how do you price it, how do you bring it into the market? Which really brings me back to the laws of supply and demand. Regardless of the industry you serve, the industry you're interested in, you gotta understand how that industry operates and how money is made in that industry. That's so critical, and it's so critical for IT organizations. So my CIO journey, which led me to the role of CEO, was that I realized, based on my experience being CIO of regulated industries and also being on the board of a number of organizations, that the most important thing is that I need to be rooted in industry standards. Because frankly, I couldn't have a situation that everybody was asking me to do something different, so I had to bring some commonality. So the fundamental principle that we injected into AcuteNet is that how do we make sure the product that we are delivering is based on industry standard? Then the second thing was that it had to be open source. And the reason it had to be open source, frankly, because it's cheaper and it's better. Proprietary products, doesn't matter whose they are, you pay for that IP. It's just simple math. That's why I love math, right? We embrace open source because it's economically is a good thing. You get great value out of open source. The other thing was that security and privacy could not be a sort of like a second thing that we are thinking about, afterthought or any of that. Security and privacy had to basically be embedded into the product. And this was also very, very critical. It's healthcare, it's patient data. And so what we did is we ensured that we publish our security and privacy principles and standards, published it right on the website. So people could actually see exactly how we have done security and privacy. The most important thing in everything that I said to you, it was really partnership. When I joined AcuteNet, for me to be able to run AcuteNet and make sure that is a business that is going to feed itself, I really had to watch to see how much money I was spending. And the only way I could really get around the cost structure is actually go the partnership model. And through partnership model, I was able to fix my cost structure. And it's a lesson that I learned when I was CIO. When I was CIO, I would have these great projects, ideas, concept teams, and I never was able to actually bring it home. It's the most funniest experience one can go through. With all the great work that I did at OLG and at Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, they were just pockets. None of them actually turned out to be a sustainable business model. When I was at Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, I actually used to do that crowdsourcing for municipal elections. It's going to be coming up. And basically it's the concept of numeration, whereby you need to know where people are so you can send them to the right place to vote. In municipal, you get to vote by where you own your properties. So if you own properties in Toronto, you get to vote for Toronto City Council. If you own properties in North Bay, then you also get to vote in North Bay. Whereas in the provincial and federal, that's not the option. So I came up with this concept of crowdsourcing, was called voter lookup. Basically the idea here is that citizens would go in there and check in and basically make sure they got to vote for the right municipality. And you would think as a business model that would bring such a great value to the society, right? But no, because in the world of a CIO, your chain gets yanked with all the different things. So as great as that innovation was, it was just basically one project, one at a time, and it was off to the next thing. And when you were off to the next thing, it was just basically balancing the issues and challenges between what the vendors wanted it to do and what the employees wanted it to do, especially when you're working for government and you have unionized workforce. You gotta be very, very careful how you do that. So when I arrived at AcuteNet, I thought that this was the opportunity lifetime for me to reset. So as a result of that resetting, AcuteNet has no employees. I am not even an employee. I have a contract with AcuteNet for my CEO services. Everything that AcuteNet delivers, it delivers through contract with trusted partners. So trusted partners are the people who actually are going to make your objective their objective. And it's remarkable that vendor communities actually do want to do that because it's good economics for them. If you're happy with their services, that means you buy more from them. If you buy more from them, they'll make more money, and then you're able to do your job better. Where the challenge is that these relationships with the vendors do not get to be established properly. And frankly, it's because you have all these intermediators in between. So what I did is that in AcuteNet, I effectively said, I don't want to have any intermediator. I have my vendors, and I'm going to look to my vendors to serve my customers. So who are my vendors? Who are my partner? Geeks for Less is a sourcing company based in Ukraine. They have very talented individuals, software engineers. They do all the work for me. Igor is here. He's not only an investor, he's also a supplier. So he wears two hats. Red Hat, we get all of our open source infrastructure, Red Hat Linux Enterprise from Red Hat, secured, and it is fantastic in terms of cost structure. And then our data center provider in Canada is Cogeco Peer 1. Jamie Leverton is here. So what my life is that Jamie's folks work with Igor's folks. And that's it. I don't have to have meetings. I don't. And when an issue comes up, I get the story very, very quickly. There is no dog ate my homework, homework ate my dog. It's very quick. The reason it's very quick, it's because there is no incentive for them to give me dramas. Just economically, there is no incentive for them. They gotta make sure that I know the issue, that I know the problem, and I move on, and I address it. And it's a business model that I know worked for me, but my thing is extremely unique. Like, those of you who are in IT, you know that, bringing other suppliers into the mix and all of that, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to bring that kind of innovation. But I guess the lesson that I want to part with you is that it's really about understanding your industry and understanding what opportunity it is that you can actually apply such a model, truly apply sharing. How do you actually make sharing work? You make sharing work because you establish trust. Because if you don't have trust, you can't share. Somebody, will think that, well, I'm not sure, I'm just gonna hold something back. And this is what actually happens a lot with us, with our vendors and suppliers. For a variety of reasons, we just don't have that relationship to tell them everything. And I'm not suggesting you go home and do this, tomorrow with everyone at work. No, not at all. As someone who has done it and got fired, no, don't do it. Not at all recommended. What I would say is that you can actually look at the concept, look at the opportunities you have, and where you can have partners like I have with Geeks for Last, with Red Hat in the Cogeco Peer 1, where you can bring those kind of opportunities to actually eliminate the middleman, to actually get the people that are delivering the service to work for you. So to wrap it up, I wanted to tell you about our aspirations. So this is on your tables. This is actually going to go on the back of Ontario Hospital Association Learning Journal. And it's going to be published, so people are going to be able to see this, whoever basically picks up this magazine. But what it says here, it says about what is our aspiration in AcuteNet. Personally, what motivates me to get up in the morning and actually do this day in and day out is that we want to deliver to the healthcare industry an economic solution that enables right care, that is this right care is rooted in technology capabilities that actually work. And what are they? Open source, encryption, cloud computing, integration, so that we can create value for our customer. And we don't get to do this because I'm the smartest person on the planet. Not at all. I get to do this is because of the partners I have. And why it's so important for us to promote our partners. Because by promoting our partners, it's like a boomerang. It comes back to us. On that note, I went in front of Toronto City Council and spoke about the problem Toronto is having dissing Airbnb all the time. You never hear anything good about Airbnb. It's terrible, rental market, people are homeless, and I'm like that. So I went in front of the Toronto City Council. There is a 4-minute video of me posted on our website under news that you can watch. And basically I told Toronto City Council that it's so critical that the city supports Airbnb because we need this infrastructure for our elder. Why? Because the same publication, Toronto Star, that this is Airbnb, published in August of last year, these two ladies that are sharing homes. we really fundamentally need to embrace this concept of sharing, because we are not going to be able to build long-term care facility and nursing home for all of us that are going to be living for a lot longer but not going to be as productive. So we need to be able to come up with a system that we can do home sharing. Why? Because when you get a system that cubby holds everyone, which United Kingdom has been very good at it, they have such a great track record. They're hailed around the world as how wonderful they have been in their healthcare model. In January, they appointed a minister for loneliness. Because as great as they are, getting the cost out of the system, nobody shares anything with anybody. So mental health with old people has become the biggest issue. When I was on the board of St. Joseph Hospital, a good portion of the beds was going to the elders. You know why? Because they were lonely. That's what it was. That's why they come to emergency room, because they're lonely. So if we can find a solution that structurally we can make sharing work, it will be the best foundation that we can have for all of us going forward. So on that note, with gratitude, I'm going to turn it over to Fawn to ask, I think, the questions that are already published.
These questions are here, you can look at them. And I think what we'll do is, I'll ask one question that you can read yourself, and then I'll turn it to the floor to see if there is anybody who has a tough question for Fariba, and that's how we'll play this.
Sure.
Okay? So, obviously the big thing here is that you were a CIO, you're now a CEO. Can you talk about the difference and what the challenges are, having a technical background versus finance and sales, which is usually how you get to the CEO position?
Yeah, I would say that I became CIO in my late 30s, and it was all through technical rank. And I would go to these meetings, and I would just had no idea what people were talking about finances. And it didn't work well for me, because intuitively, I knew what was wrong with my projects, but I didn't really have the business.
Acumen.
Yeah, exactly. I was just basically, I was a person that came to Canada and was uphill both ways for me, and oh, so great, she's now a CIO, whatever. But I really didn't have the business. And this was like, it was in my late 30s. So I got my MBA. I went and actually back to school at Rothman, and that was a way for me 16 years ago to really understand the fundamental of business. Because if you don't understand the fundamental of business, that doesn't matter what business you're in. You work for government, you work for private sector, it doesn't matter what you do, you gotta make money. If you can't make money, it's just not gonna work. And it's so important to understand the economics, to understand the statistics, to understand marketing, sales, P&L. It's really important. They're not difficult concept to understand, but in our world as technologists, we don't get that in school, or at least when I went to school, we didn't get it. So a lot of us as CIO roles that are in the CIO, we just constantly rely on our technical capability. I used to give these people the image that if somebody was to draw a picture of me as a leader, was that I had very great upper body muscles because I was really good at technology, but I was standing on toothpick legs because I really didn't have any concept in business. I wasn't rooted in business. So that's what I did, and that's what I saw the biggest difference in the journey.
Interesting. Now, does anybody have a question? Jenny?
So, I know Farida, and with your permission, I'm going to challenge you.
Sure. Love it.
So we spoke about transition from CIO to CEO. Did you ever made a mistake? What was the mistake, and what did you learn in this transition?
Oh, which one of them? Like in the transition? Yeah, in the transition, I guess my biggest mistake in the transition was that I didn't really appreciate how challenged healthcare industry is. It's beyond, you can't really explain it to people unless you're in it. because I was on the board of St. Joseph Hospital, I mean at the governance level, your governance, I really didn't understand the difficulty, the challenges that the technology people have in healthcare. They just cannot get it right. And so as a result of it, there is a huge move in Ontario, what is called value-based procurement. And what the value-based procurement is that you're not gonna do RFP and throw the kitchen sink in it, and then at the end of it don't have anything to show, but say, hey, listen, I did the paperwork right. That's just not gonna happen anymore. So Ontario Centre of Excellence basically is trying to change the momentum to create this value-based procurement, which means that you, the provider, you have to get a technology partner, and that technology partner gotta show that they're gonna putting money on the table. And stop saying this thing that requirements changed. So I didn't really appreciate the difficulty of the healthcare industry.
How did you fix it?
I know I cannot fix it. I mean, it's not gonna happen in my lifetime. No, it is gonna be, and I tell my team all the time, I said, listen, if it was working, they wouldn't need us. Our job is to get the lemons, turn it into lemonade. If people could make the lemonade themselves, they wouldn't be coming to us. So that's the coaching that I constantly give to my partners and their teams, because it's a very, very difficult business. And I have a double whammy, because they get to work with other people, that life is a lot better.
It's a good answer.
Did you, I'm Will, by the way.
Hi, Will.
Thank you for your talk. Did you ever have a situation while you were CIO that you made assumptions about the CEO and the role, and then when you took the chair realized, whoa, that's different?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
what kind of things were that?
So I had a situation that this actually this goes back to Ron. It actually goes back to the government of Ontario. This is when Ron McCurley became the corporate CIO, and then he moved into assistant deputy minister and the deputy minister. Yeah, deputy minister. And I had done some work for Ron when he was the CIO. I had my own company and done IT governance for all his, basically all the ministries. And then what I had, and when he got promoted, and he had this assistant deputy, which is basically a CEO sort of role. The kind of work that I was doing for him, that was all about IT governance, had no value. And I was shattered when I had lunch with him, because I thought that, oh, he's now a deputy minister, he's going to basically get me to do, and he basically told me, he said, Fariba, it means nothing. Don't let the door hit you in the And it was shocking. It was shocking that how much I thought there was value in the work that I was doing, and I didn't see any value in it. It's not because the work wasn't value. It's because the value I was seeing was in the plumbing, and he was worrying about, is the building gonna come down? If the building is gonna come down, who gives a crap about the plumbing?
Yeah.
But to your question, just putting it a different way, there is the biggest thing of being a CEO is having vision.
Yes.
And you have vision, and then for the rest of the company, they have a mission. And the CIO has a mission to fulfill that vision. And sometimes they're very visionary in the way they do that, but they're still looking at what the CEO has stated, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So that means there would be different leadership expectations. So could you elaborate on your experience of being, like, what was important and a priority as a CIO with the team versus now being a CEO, even though you don't have staff, but you have many contractors and you do have a team, you have a virtual team.
Yeah. So as a CIO, there is all these things about the strategy, vision, and mission, and all these things you have to do, and then you bring consultant in, and basically they do the analysis and all of that. I mean, that's the universe that we travel. There are a lot of surveys, and there are a lot of, those kind of things. As a CEO, it's like, so what? Like, okay, so how is this gonna make the business better? So when I was a CIO, and I would be going and standing in front of the boards, and speaking to them about like all this stuff that I was doing, I actually did not realize that, like, you know, they don't care. It's just basically whatever. Like, how is she gonna stop, right? Is when I was on the boards that I realized that when the CIO was coming doing, and afterwards there would be a discussion how disinterested the boards were. And it was like sort of very difficult, right? Because, like, you know, it's my kin that is sort of not being paid attention to. And then when I joined AcuteNet, that was on bloody steroid, because my two investors do not give a damn. What they want, where is our money, what did you do with our money, when are we gonna get our money back? And that's it. The board meetings, literally, if I say anything, they're like that, you're talking too much. What do you think? But the reality of it here is that that's actually the way it is. And we talk a lot about IT. We suck a lot of oxygen out of the air, like, you know? It's just all about IT, like one more time about IT. It's like, really? So it's a very, it's a different world because we are a little bit in a bubble.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So given the fact that your board says you talk too much, just tell me how much money you made me, how do you find purpose?
Money. Honestly, you know what? The reality of it here is that I know, like, especially nowadays, you talk about money and people are like, oh, why are you talking about money? We should have causes. If you don't have money, you can't do anything. You have to have money. You have to have budget, right? If you don't have it, you don't have anything. You know, when you work for entrepreneurs, it is actually about that. Yes, there is something that you're trying to bring to the market that is differentiating, like what I'm trying to do with the healthcare and sharing economy. Yes, it is lovely. But if it doesn't make money, it's just not gonna live. It's as simple as that. So if a project we're working on is not making money, like, we sort of have to think about, well, how do we think we get paid? Like, it's gotta be that simple for us in our mind, but it's not, because we got all these other things in between that takes our time.
Question?
I'm from Step. We work together.
Yes, at All Street.
Yes, long time.
Long time.
As a CEO, how do you de-risk the journey that your CIO is proposing?
Okay, well, I don't have that problem.
Well, not now, but you did. Well.
No, well, that's actually, to be honest with you, why I went to the partnership model. It was exactly that.
Okay.
I think that a lot of CEOs that are bringing this person CIO, and they're expecting one individual in their organization to basically solve all the problems, information problems, security problem, productivity problem, and all of that. I mean, I'm like, I don't know how actually you expect an individual to do that. What I have seen some CIOs do, that they basically establish a very clear path for themselves. They basically are very clear to the board. They say, this is what we are going to do. IT here is gonna give you connectivity. It's gonna give you security. It's gonna give you these tools. Now, all these other things you wanna do, all these other innovation, great. Get other people to come in and leverage the assets to do them. CIOs who are doing that, I have seen them to have a lot of longevity and actually have a lot of influence on the board and on the CEO. And one of them actually is in the room, is Roy French. Roy, do you want to do this? I've seen it. There are CIOs that actually do that because they are so specific. CIOs that are basically are out there innovators and, you know, they end up doing things that is not their job, considering that everybody expects them to be all things to all people.
So, in the context of the public cloud, right, you're in a very regulatory, contentious space,
Yeah.
right? So now with the public cloud, you know, the Americans are coming, right?
Well, I'm not public cloud.
No, well, I know, but from a CEO perspective,
Yes,
right,
yes.
your CIOs are saying you can gain further efficiencies with the public cloud.
with the public cloud. Yeah.
storage, et cetera. You know, in your transition from CIO to CEO, how do you see that? How do you, like, what is your answer for Canadian, like, I mean, for us
Yeah.
Canadians? How do you de-risk that for healthcare? How do you de-risk that for financial services? How do you de-risk that for, you know, media and entertainment, for instance?
So I went through exactly that journey when I took the job at MPAC. So the way municipal property assessment works is that every 4 years you all get your property assessment notices, right? Guess what? You all want to know what's going on. It spikes the demand on the system. So what was happening is that we were provisioning for that peak every 4 years and going broke in terms of amount of money we had to spend. So we went cloud, okay? And the idea here is that we get that storage at the peak time that we need. Whether it is public or private, there is a lot of fear mongering about security and privacy. And it doesn't matter if it's a health record information, your bank account, or just basically, I don't know, a pair of shoes you bought. Does not matter what it is, especially nowadays with everything that is happening on Facebook and everything is even gonna get worse. So I would say that it's really, really important you head on security and privacy first before cloud. Because if the culture of the organization is fear-mongering, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, whether you are a supplier or a buyer, doesn't matter. If it's a fear-mongering, if the culture cannot be adjusted to embrace security and privacy, don't even bother that path. And that was based on my experience at MPAC. And I've applied exactly the same thing at AcuteNet. At AcuteNet, I give my customer the option to host the infrastructure in their data center, because I had to neuter that. If that was going to be a discussion, I wouldn't be standing in front of you. There's no way we would have been able to overcome that challenge.
And do you see the incumbent providers giving you a response as a CEO? All the Azures, the Googles, the Amazons, et cetera, giving you a response that is satisfactory for you? Or
For me, yes. For me, yes. We went to this.
What about your CIO?
Yeah. So for me, CIO or CEO, like in the world that I travel, Amazon did a brilliant job. One of my clients is Government of Singapore. In Singapore, brought in AWS. It was a few years ago, and it was just fantastic what they did. But you know, there's just one line that is basically said, we may move your data, and that killed it. So until such a time that public provider are gonna have, we may move your data, it's not gonna go anywhere. I would then say companies such as Cogeco Peer 1, they're gonna give me that capability. So I have the benefit of private cloud, which means that I don't have to worry about the storage, I don't have to worry about capacity or anything. They monitor everything for me, and they have cut a lot of cost for me and improve my efficiency. So it really goes back to the industry, and I think that it's also culture. So you know, in Singapore, there's no way I'm gonna change that culture. So you know what? Take it. We host it in, just let it put it in your infrastructure, and that's what we did. It is what it is.
So talking about, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to build on Adam's question, essentially. Fariba, nice to meet you. Can you go up a level on this, on exactly the same question Adam asked? So you talked about the partner model, and I find that really fascinating, how everybody that works in AcuteNet is a partner.
Yes.
How did you overcome the regulatory challenges? Because in my previous life, I've worked in long-term healthcare and with a lot of healthcare providers over the years. And the regulatory challenges have always been asinine, pardon the language.
It is.
Right, completely. Both from a billing perspective, how you track back and bill, and the regulations that enforce that, as well as, PHIPAA, HIPAA, whatever it is, in the region you're in.
Yeah.
Forgetting the infrastructure piece, but more from a partner. How do you enforce compliancy?
It's a lot of work. I have to manage every situation. Ontario government, every link uses my product. Everyone in Ontario that receives home care, discharged from hospital or wants home care, you're on AcuteNet. I have information on over 2 million clinical information. These are very, very highly sensitive information. And I remember having this meeting with the Ministry of Health people, with OACCACs, and basically, I had to give them personal guarantee.
Wow.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is people buy from people.
Yeah.
If they don't trust you, they throw the book at you. If they trust you, you then have to show them that the infrastructure you're giving them is in fact the infrastructure you told them.
Right.
So we went through a very long, enduring process to prove to them that what we were telling them is what we were doing, and what we were doing is what we were telling them.
So was that through an auditing process with a third-party auditor? Was that a accreditation process? How did that work?
The way it worked out, it was a very interesting process that I did say to them. I said, do you want us to have third party and all of that? And basically it's remarkable how politically sometimes it works. Yes, get an auditor here, and sometimes it doesn't work. No, we don't want an auditor here. So at that time was that, no, you need to prove to our privacy officers.
Okay.
So you come in and you put your career on the line. Because frankly, no, we're not interested in auditing. Amazingly enough, with the change that is gonna happen on June 8th with the election, guess what? Fariba, have you done your third-party audit? We're gonna need that. And I'm like, well, we're not through all that, and you told, what conversation are you talking about? Completely amnesia. And it has to be, because there can't be any ever references to these things, right? These are government procurement decisions, and you have to go by the book. They don't go by the book, they deviate a sentence, something goes wrong, they're all gone.
Yeah, familiar with that process.
Yeah.
Taking a different path with the same question, you said that you've given personal guarantees to this. So how are you ensuring that your partners have the compliance?
I trust them, and honestly,
Yeah.
Every situation that I have been at, they have come true for me. And I really think it's for the relationship. Like, I mean, if you have trust and confidence in people, it's remarkable how the boomerang comes back to you. But if you constantly are out there trying to nitpick and find what's the problem, who sent this email, why did you send that email? I mean, when you do that, the relationship becomes extremely transactional. People don't go out of their way to work for you. Doesn't matter who they are. It really comes down to trust.
Interesting. Okay.
So Fariba, in building your ecosystem, because a big part of the ecosystem is what we're talking about, how do you properly vet so that you can build the trust, and that you know you've chosen the right partners, and that you can convince, in your case that you're the CEO, but in other cases you might be the CIO, that you can convince the CEO that this is the right path?
I honestly go with people I know. So when I started it with AcuteNet, Michael Dell was going through the privatization of Dell, and they had asked me to be on one of the president advisory boards for John Swanson, and it was the software side. And so I knew what Michael was trying to do, and I knew what his leadership team was trying to do. So when I took over AcuteNet, we had servers all over the place. It was just a bloody nightmare. So I reached out to the team in Canada, Kevin, and when we were at the Lux event, I actually mentioned it. And I basically said that I called Kevin and I said that, I need your help. And then he was on vacation. He called me back. He said, I'm on vacation. He said, we don't have anything in Canada, but we have a partner in Canada, Cogeco Peer 1. Let me introduce you to the Cogeco Peer 1. And that's where, so I had not worked with Cogeco Peer 1 at all. I didn't know Cogeco Peer 1, right? And I basically said that, I really can't afford, this is really critical, I really need to have trust. And so the US arm of Dell did a third-party deal with Cogeco Peer 1. And basically, it was really people I knew. I mean, there is no other way. Like, if you don't know the person, I mean, there could be the best people on the face of the planet, but how do you know? So it's like people that you know, and then people that they know. So if Roy comes up to me and basically says to me that, Fariba, I want you to do this, there is this company here that I want you to basically talk to, whatever. I trust Roy, Roy trusts me, therefore we trust this other person. And that's what we gotta do. So that's the strategy I have.
Was that the strategy you had in Impact?
I tried at Impact. That's where Luke and I met. I used to be Luke's, when I was CIO at Bell Nexion. Luke was running half of Canada sales, and so he was one of my major clients. This goes back to early 2000, and then we meet again in 2012. And then he came to me and he said, you know, I took over Red Hat Canada, I have all this capability. I tried, but it's very, very difficult when you have a lot of middlemen in between, a lot of people in between. You know, you just eventually run out of time. There's only so many meetings you can have to try to convince people.
Jeff Gable, Archer Wings Canada, thank you so much for being here tonight. As we grow from role to role, we use our collective experiences and frame of reference to move forward and be successful in that new role. As you step from the CIO into the CEO role, what blind spots did being a CIO create that you missed in this as being the CEO?
So, like blind spot I had as a CIO, blind spot I had as CEO.
Well, blind spots, you have assumptions as a CIO that you carry forward into the new role, and gotchas come upon you.
You know, this is a very good question for Igor. Because he lived it. And Bill, what was the thing that you guys thought that when I was doing it, that you thought, oh my gosh, he's missing this point really big time? What? Choose one. I know you have a long list.
You already described us pretty much, so I don't know.
No, aside from that, no, seriously, what was it? I know that was a huge challenge that, company had to be self-sustaining, but other than that, when you guys think about it, or maybe just not with me, just basically in the world of technology, people that you're working with, what is the blind spot you guys see?
Well, I think if I just go back to your history, when we first asked you on, we had no idea that we were effectively, the company was basically bankrupt, and we were, I wouldn't say the other CEO was, I wouldn't say defrauding, but not giving us all the information. I'll be nice.
He didn't have it.
He maybe didn't have it. And then you came on board, and then we said, look, this company is really out of business. We're either gonna have to refund it and fix all these problems, and we signed contracts for things we couldn't do, and crazy stuff, right? And so sometimes even if you're the investor, even when you're the CEO, it took you a couple months to figure that out. Really.
More than a couple of months. I think.
Yeah, it wasn't just an instant thing. So I'd say there's blinders there.
Yeah, it was a very, very painful process.
Yeah.
It was painful because I am very driven, and I have to fix it. But it was very, very painful that, these are literally people's private money. Literally, it's a completely different story when you work for an institution than when you work for people that actually went to the bank, took money from their bank account, and gave it to you. It's a completely two different paradigm. And I would actually say, back to the blind spot, is that the blind spot is that when I was a CIO, I actually didn't understand that. I don't know what it is, but I didn't understand it. I knew it because it's a taxpayer money, it's the same thing, but we don't have the same, it wasn't the same picture in my mind that these guys actually wrote personal checks, right?
But Fariba, just to add to that, you would have also had a situation where you talk about trust. You had the opposite of trust. There was a group of people that were, I don't know what better way to say it, almost con man, feeding false information, and you really see how a lot of organizations, but you see the opposite of trust.
That's a very, very good point.
And what happens?
Yeah, I think that actually, that doesn't happen too often. I think that, Igor, in your career, how many times you can't even count in one hand that people that basically have done you wrong. It's just very few. When you look at your life, most people are trustworthy, most people are good, most people get up in the morning because they want to do the best job. But you do come across situations that actually this happens to you. And it's so important from a blind spot perspective that actually know that can happen. as a CIO, I just, now that I look back, it's so amazing we talked about this. I literally can go back to my career and I can actually say, you know what? I can pick those people that for a variety of reasons they weren't on the same agenda I was. But I couldn't pick those people before I went through this experience as a CEO. There is something to be said about when you have that fiduciary responsibility, like, you know, as if like, you know, you're diving into the deep ocean and somehow your spleen increases and acts as an oxygen tank. And it's just a capability you gain because you're in the fire. And I think that's basically was the journey that I went through.
Any other questions and around this topic?
I want to turn around. I want to see if anybody has any question from Jamie, and because she took on this role at Cogeco P1. What was it?
A year.
A
It's
year.
been a year.
It's been a year.
And we were already down the path of being in the sharing economy with Fariba, and I didn't even know what that meant. Let alone that I was her entire IT department. She waited a while before she sprung that on.
But Cogeco P1, I know that I am one of the customers in healthcare, but you have a lot of customers in healthcare, right?
Yeah, we're actually, we have just organically developed so many globally that we are building a vertical around it because we see such a huge future in it, and especially when we see innovation happening like what AcuteNet has done. I really think that's the future of healthcare that we want to participate in, as opposed to competing in the old paradigm within healthcare, which I've had a long career in tech, and I tend to avoid healthcare in municipalities like the plague. But the future of healthcare, that's something that we're going to go all in on, honestly.
Very good. So Ihor, in your, you have a lot of customers. AcuteNet is one of them. St. Elizabeth is another one. What's like in your role as the sort of like being baptized by fire with healthcare?
It's more to